Hello and welcome back to another episode of Sportsbook Confidential. My name is John Sullivan, and I'm coming to you from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. And this little show is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. And we've got another football-packed edition of Sportsbook Confidential today, but I want to add in a sportsbook lesson on timing of your wagering, or when is the best time to make a bet. And it varies, and to be honest, I think it's more art than science. It depends if you're a bettor of, you bet near the limits of what the sportsbook will allow, versus if you're, even $5 just to have some action on the game, that leaves you wide open with choices. So, and also your wagering strategies will make an impact on what the best time to bet will be. So we're going to talk about that first, and then we're going to get into the college and pro games this weekend. And I've got my model cranked out some predictions, and we'll see if there's any value there. And I'll give you my picks at the end of the show. But we're going to start, like we always do, by updating my bankroll. And it was a very interesting week. I went 2-3-1, had a push. It could have been great and it could have been ugly. There were a lot of games that, for wagering purposes, were very, very close. Let's just review quickly. Ohio State over. That was a loss for me. It was 52, and Ohio State won 42-0. Since he couldn't put up anything, just needed 10 points out of them. Didn't happen. Minus $17. Texas +7. That was a push. So no change to the bankroll. That was a back-and-forth game all game long. It could have easily gone either way and winded up being a push. Stanford +3. That was a loss. That was the one game that really I had no chance at. The USC freshman quarterback came out and played like the second coming of Joe Montana. I think everybody was surprised at how well he was prepared and how well he played. It was very unexpected. So we had the Chiefs minus 3.5 on Sunday, and that game was never in doubt, really. Of course, Nick Foles got hurt for the Jaguars, so they went to their backup. But that was, not much of a sweat there, plus $18 to the bankroll. Then we had the Bills winning against the Jets, and that looked like it was going to be a loser, but that came around for us. And we had the Bills on the money line, so that was plus $22 to the bankroll. And then finally we had the Lions and the Cardinals under. And, of course, if you watched that game, the Lions had the game easily in hand in the fourth quarter and somehow let the Cardinals back into it. And the game ended up going to overtime at 24-24, so we lost our under. But that was one that we probably should have won, but we didn't. Minus $17, and that's just the way it goes, and you have to, accept those bad beats when they come. It's just part of the game. We got the Bills win. I would rather have had it turned out that way than the other way, because I ended up coming out further ahead on that scenario. So at any rate, that's a loss of $9 on the week. So the new bankroll is $490. Dividing by 30, as we always do, as we try to remain selective sports bettors, makes our bet size $16 going forward this week. So let's get into our sportsbook lesson, and let's talk about, does it matter when you bet? And when we talk about when you bet, we don't mean if you bet. We mean you're planning on making a wager. Do you bet early in the day or early in the week, or do you bet late in the day or late in the week? And as you can see here, our strategy here on the show, of course, we have a profit motive. We're trying to make money. So when we bet, we want to get the best number. And what that means is, if it's a point spread game, we want +7 instead of +6, or -6 instead of -7. We want the best number. Or if it's a money line or an over-under, we want the best number. The lowest number for an over, the highest number for an under. We are hoping to beat the closing line and earn CLV. CLV stands for closing line value. I've talked about that in previous episodes. So if we take the Chiefs -3, and then when the game kicks off on Sunday, they're -3.5, well, we earned a half a point of CLV. We got a better number than the closing line, so we got closing line value. Sometimes we might bet early enough to actually bet the other side later. That's more of an advanced strategy. But say, for example, there's a line on the Chiefs game and Patrick Mahomes is questionable. We don't know if he's going to play or not. Well, you can take a stand by betting the number before the final information comes out, and then betting against it after the final information comes out, and maybe try to get a middle. Middle is a strategy where you bet two sides and you try to have the actual result fall in the middle so you can win both bets. But that's kind of an advanced strategy, and we're not really going to talk about that today. But if you might bet early if there's a questionable key personnel that might be injured or suspended, so you can bet the other side later and get out of it if you don't like the way things shake out towards the game day. So let's start by talking about betting early. And you can see I have here, we can bet openers for small amounts. Lines are usually very soft. So, for example, football lines, they actually come out on Sunday night, but we'll just say Monday morning, the lines come out for the next Sunday NFL game. So you have 6 whole days to make a wager, and you have a lot of time in between to decide when you want to wager. So what happens is the opening lines are what the sportsbook puts up and what they think the lines should be. They may not even really care, but they put very small limits on those lines. On Monday, they might be $100. They might be $200. If you're a beginning sports bettor and you're betting $25, it really doesn't matter. But if you're one of those players that's playing, over $250 to $500 to $1,000 and up, it matters greatly. So there are a lot of people that bet those openers, and then the lines start to move as money comes in. You can obviously see, if it's Pittsburgh versus Tennessee and money keeps coming in on Tennessee, the line's going to move. The line's going to change. If money keeps coming in on the over, then the over-under is going to go up. It's going to change. So you may get a good number early on, but you might not be able to bet very much. As the game gets closer to its start time, limits on wagers will start to rise. This usually comes into effect in football after Thursday. Thursday night, the injury reports come out for all the teams. And usually starting on Friday, the limits start to open up. You can bet more and more all the way up to Sunday. Now, with NFL, you can get $5,000 down on a game, no problem. It's the most liquid market. It's the most bet on sport. College is different. It's, you're lucky to get $2,000 on a game. A sports book will let you bet more than that. I know for somebody who's bet CFL for several years that's a much smaller market, and you get, like, on game day, you get $2,500 on a side, a point spread, and maybe $1,500 on an over-under, and that's like the max you could do at a sports book. And I'm sure that Del Lago, you could probably not even get $500 down on a CFL game. I haven't tested that limit yet, but I wouldn't be surprised. They're not interested in booking it for large amounts of money. But with the NFL and with other sports such as basketball, baseball, and hockey, you can bet more, as you get closer and closer to game time. They may open up, with basketball and hockey and baseball, the lines are usually only up for 24 hours. So it may be, within 2 or 3 hours of the game starting that you actually can bet a large amount of money on it. And betting early is usually the easiest method to gain closing line value. What usually happens is a line comes out and people, usually what I would consider sharp sports bettors, attack that line, and the line moves to a more market appropriate line. as you get closer and closer to kickoff or game time, the market will basically determine what the closing line is. Like I said, if the Chiefs opened at -3 and then the game kicks off and they're -3.5, well, the market determined the line that moved that line by betting so much on one side or the other. So the easiest way to get closing line value is to go bet early in the week. So if you're a $25 or $50 bettor, you can go to the Sportsbook early in the week, and you could probably get a better number on your college game or your pro game than what the closing line is. And that's going to give you a better chance to win. So we've got some, we're going to talk about betting late here. You can get the largest wagers on a game if you bet late. We've already talked about that. The limits get higher and higher. You have the most information about a game. We've talked a little bit about that. So going into kickoff time, you know the weather, you know the referee crew, you know the attendance, you know the starting lineups, you know who's dressed for the game, who's not, who's suspended. And that you have the most information to make a good wager on the game, and your chances of getting closing line value are not great when you're betting late. But it is advantageous when you have a very contrarian wager, and what I mean by that is, we'll use the Chiefs example again. The Chiefs opened at -3, and then they moved to -3.5 right before kickoff. But I wanted the Jaguars, which are plus 3.5, or I wanted the Titans, which are plus 3.5. So what that means is, even though the Chiefs opened as the favorite and people bet on them so much that the line moved, my model said the Titans have a really good chance of covering. So I'm going to wait and see how many points I can get on the Titans, and then it gets close to game time and it's at 3.5, and it never got to 4. But I got the best number I could get on the side that I wanted to bet. So it's sometimes waiting to the very end is very helpful for a contrarian wager. And let's give some specific examples. Football, lines come out on Monday, games played on Saturday and Sunday. Baseball, basketball, and hockey, lines come out no more than 24 hours before the start. We talked about that. It can be 3 or 4 hours before the game time before those limits really open up. I know that it's, usually it's $2,500, $3,000 on a hockey side, and $1,500 to maybe $2,000 on a total. Those are like the limits I usually see at sports books. And here in Del Lago, they'll probably be smaller. It's a smaller sports book. Future bets. Future bets, of course, are to predict future events happening, such as the Bills winning the Super Bowl or somebody being MVP of the league. These are available often 12 months before the event that it's happening. You can bet futures on the Kentucky Derby for next year. Betting early is often optimal here. So if you had bet the Titans to win the Super Bowl, we did a show on NFL futures, and I believe they were like 68-1 to win the Super Bowl. And now that Andrew Luck was hurt and the Titans seem to be playing very well, they're much lower. I think they're 50-1 or 40-1 now. So if you had bet them earlier, you got much better value. So keep in mind, think about, when the season ends, think about who's going to be good next year. I mean, you don't, if you bet right after the Super Bowl, you don't know who's going to draft what or what trades are going to happen. But sometimes a player, it's announced that they're suspended for 4 games and their futures value goes up, and they're only missing 4 games out of the season. So if they're only out for the first 4 games, it's not make or break for their season. So sometimes you can find value in edges like that. So that's going to wrap it up for our sportsbook lesson. You can bet early, you can bet late. I find for NFL that Fridays, I usually go over to the casino after the show, and boy, the lines can move quickly, I'll do a show. I'll look at them at 11 a.m. and I'm over there at 12:15, and the lines have already moved tremendously. So there's a lot of action on Friday, but you can still find very good value on the games. So let's move on, and we're going to start with college football. I got 16 games picked out. I'm going to try to go through these quickly. Tonight we have North Carolina at Wake Forest, minus 365.5. Of course, for those of you that don't watch the show regularly, my numbers in parentheses are my quantitative model projection for the game, and I usually try to find value in looking at the difference between these two sets of numbers. So I have minus 5.92 and 66.5, so a little bit of value on taking Wake Forest here, but I'm going to pass on that game. Ohio State at Indiana. Ohio State on the road. Plus 17.5, 60.5. I have Indiana plus 15.61, 65.33. So I have the under this week, but I think I'm going to stay away from that game. Pitt at Penn State. This used to be a big rivalry. Penn State minus 17, 53.5. I have minus 16.11, 49.94, so lean towards the under there. Kansas State at Mississippi State, minus 7.5, 52. I have Mississippi State minus 12.71, 49.20. Kansas State seems like they took a step back this season. They didn't look very good in their last game. But I don't know if I feel comfortable enough dropping a wager on Mississippi State at minus 7.5. And minus 7 maybe, but 7.5 not so much. NC State at West Virginia, plus 7, 46. I have West Virginia as plus 3, as a 3-point underdog, and then the total at 56.13. So there's a 10-point swing there on the total, so I really like the over here. But West Virginia getting 7 seems like a little bit more than they should be getting. So I lean West Virginia, but I really like the over here. Air Force at Colorado, minus 3.5, 58.5, minus 2.71, 55.90. It's about right where it should be. No value on that game. Stanford at Central Florida, minus 9, 60.5, minus 8.92, 58.65. Again, it's almost exactly the same, so I feel like that game has no value for me. USC at BYU, I've got plus 3.5, 55.5, plus 3.25, 56.65, a third game where it's almost exactly the same, and we have no value on that play. All right, let's look at the rest of the college games. We got Alabama at South Carolina starting their SEC schedule. Plus 25.5, 62. Plus 20.51 says my model. 59.31. So it's leaning towards South Carolina. But heavy favorite games, it's got to be, like double digits difference for me even to consider it. And even then, I don't like taking it because it becomes down to backups. Iowa State, big rivalry game. I have Iowa at plus 4.37 and the line is 1.5. So it's an extra field goal worth of value on Iowa. Minus 4.37 Iowa is. So 43.5, 48.36. So we're looking at the under there. That's an interesting game. Arizona State at Sparty, Michigan State, minus 14.5, 42.5, minus 11.1, 43.34. So that says take Arizona State, but 3 points is not enough for me in that situation. Florida at Kentucky, plus 9, 48.5. I have Florida as a 2.21 favorite, 49.23. So that's a 7-point swing for Kentucky. Kentucky at home. Florida, they look good in the season opener, but it's a tough place for them to play. And that's kind of a rivalry game. They play each other every year. Clemson at Syracuse. Clemson minus 28, 65.5. I have Syracuse as 18.27 underdogs, 58.55. So once again, we have a 10-point swing with the model. And you have Syracuse coming off a horrible loss last week where they lost by 43 points. I lean over on this game. I lean under on this game, and that could easily go over. So I'm just staying away from that. Florida State minus 7.5, 57.5, minus 8.45, 53.6. Leans under, but it's pretty close. Oklahoma, UCLA, plus 23.5 for UCLA, 72, plus 19.89, 71.76 is, again, very close, no value. Texas Tech at Arizona late night, Pac-12 after dark, plus 277, plus 315, 71.44. So there's a 6-point difference, leans towards the under. That may be our late night value in the college. So I'm going to skip right onto the pros. And week 2, we're going to start off with the Bills and the Giants. Giants currently 1.5 underdog, 43.5. I have the Giants as 0.58 underdog, 41.54. So the Bills are slightly favored here. Not much value taking them on the point spread or the money line. I think that may be a pass for me. I do like the Bills to win that game. Cardinals at Ravens, minus 13. The total's 46. I have the minus 12.98 right on, 55.04. So that game's a no-go for me. 49ers at Bengals, minus 146. Minus 2.71, 44.06, lean under. But that's a stay-away game, too. Chargers at Lions. Lions getting 2.5 points, 47.5. I have Lions as 5.91 underdogs, 47.44. That's right on. So the Chargers only giving up 2.5 looks like a value play there. Vikings at the Packers. Packers minus 2.5, 44. I have this game as a virtual coin flip. 0.02 favorite for the Packers, 43.73. So I really like the Vikings on the money line here because it's a coin flip game, a 50-50 proposition. You want the team with the better odds. So Jaguars at Texans. Texans minus 9.5, 43. I have them at 10.74 favorites. 38.38. That's a pretty low projection. So my model doesn't like the backup quarterback for the Jaguars and feels like this is going to go under because they're supposed to be both very good defenses. Seahawks at Steelers, minus 4, 46.5, minus 4.32, 45.47, right on. We're going to pass on that. Colts at Titans, minus 3, 44.5, minus 1.25, 42.97. So it leans under. It leans to the Colts, but not really enough of an edge for me to consider making a wager. And then we'll go through the rest of the football games for the NFL. Cowboys at Skins, plus 5.5, 46.5, plus 6.36, 46.01. That's pretty close. Pats at the Dolphins, and this game is another one of those games where I don't know what number would really make me comfortable betting on the Dolphins. It would have to be at least 22, 23 points. I have them as 14.93 dogs, 46.73. So I like the over in that game, and that could easily happen. But my model doesn't like it enough to make a wager. Chiefs at Raiders. Raiders plus 7.5, 52.5. I have 7.14, 53.85. It's right on. Bears at Broncos plus 2.5, 40.5. I have plus 2.7, 40.21. That's right on as well. Saints at Rams, minus 2, 52, minus 2.29, 56.28. So that leans over. My model says it'll go over 52. And Eagles at Falcons. Falcons getting 2, 52.5. I have 2.55, 52.82. Again, it's right on. No value in betting that game for me. And then on Monday night, we have the Browns and the Jets, plus 6.5 since they announced Darnold was out with mono. 44 is the total. I have plus 5.48 and 46.77. So I lean over on the Monday night game if you're looking for a wager on Monday night. Not the strongest play, according to my model, but it is my model's done very well this NFL season so far. I've been very impressed with the results. A very small sample size, of course, and lots of things can change. But as the season goes along, we also have more data to work with. And I expect that the lines makers will get better and probably better than me at some point. But I've been pleased. So let's wrap up the show with my picks for this week in football. I'm going to make 2 college picks. I feel like 5 picks is really the max I should be making every week on the show. We're trying to stop the bleeding here. So NC State, West Virginia, over 46, minus 108. I feel like that game could easily go over to in the 50s. That had a big discrepancy with my model. Texas Tech, Arizona, late night, Saturday night, under 77, minus 115. And then on Sunday, we have the Vikings and the Packers. I'm going to take the Vikings straight up on the money line, plus 130. Very good value for a team that could, that is going to be I expect to be very competitive. I'm going to take the Chargers at the Lions, minus 2.5 at even money, plus 100. We said our model had the Chargers at 5-point-something favorites, so we're getting like an extra field goal there. And then the Saints and the Rams at 4, the late afternoon game, over 52, minus 107. Both of these teams gave up a fair amount of points last week, and I expect they'll do the same this week. So it'll be interesting to see. The Saints are not usually as good on the road as they are at home, but, you think 28-28, 28-24 is very doable for these two offenses. So I expect that game to be fireworks and fun to watch. So as always, after the show, I'll be heading over to the Del Lago Sportsbook. And don't be afraid to come over and say hello if you see me, and happy to talk sports betting with anybody and everybody. So thanks for tuning in this week, and we'll try to get some more winners. And next week we'll have another show with another sportsbook lesson and a lot more football for you. So I'm going to play the outro music, and take care, everybody. Let's have a good day.